joyful. I'm not. You felt joyful, then you wished you hadn't said it because you knew how bad it sounded.
No, Piers. No, Piers.
I quoted you directly.
Human potato Piers Morgan had a couple of guests on his show recently, including right-wing insane maker Tomi Lahren and journalist Taylor Lorenz to talk about the recent murder of CEO Brian Thompson of United Health, and specifically why some in this country seem so celebratory about it. And it's something I both understand and scratch my head over. Generally, I get why people are angry at corporate America in general and, health care in America and health care corporations in particular. But there is something that feels a little dangerous about the wildness of this. I would almost call it a kind of a euphoria. It's fascinating to me, and I continue to explore it. Piers Morgan and his, mansplaining, steamrolling, ask a question and then don't let your panelist answer gets my blood going better than 3 cups of coffee. I don't know why I keep coming back to him. I hate his face. Yeah, but here we are. We're going to do it again. So let's take a listen.
This issue of Brian Thompson, one of the top healthcare executives in the country, I'm just curious why your first reaction would be to his cold-blooded execution. And people wonder why we want these executives dead. And then you later commented when people were giving you a lot of blowback, I'm not alone, you said. Healthcare executive down with party balloons was on a next post that you commented on. Why would you be in such a celebratory mood about the execution of another human being? Aren't you supposed to be on the caring, sharing left where...
Shut up, you douche.
You believe in the sanctity of life?
I do believe in the sanctity of life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like...
Serious?
I mean...
Joy in a man's execution?
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again,
we're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband. He's a father.
This guy looks like a dog chew toy shaped like a pig is what he looks like to me. But I don't know that I would say I felt joy. That's not quite right. A sort of righteous justice, maybe. I don't know that I felt joy.
And he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you joyful?
Thousands of Americans that be murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people. And the many millions of Americans that have watched people that I care about suffer and in some cases die because of lack of health care.
So should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
But why not?
And,
why are you laughing?
I think because it wouldn't fix the system.
You seem to find the whole thing hilarious.
I find your question funny.
A bloke's been murdered in the street. I don't find it funny at all.
I don't find it funny that tens of thousands of Americans die every year and because they are denied life-saving healthcare from people like the CEO. Now, I want to fix the system. You're right. We shouldn't be going around shooting each other with vigilante justice. No. I think that it is a good thing that this murder has led to America, or really the media elites and politicians in this country paying attention to this issue for the first time. You mentioned you couldn't understand why somebody would feel this reaction when they watched a CEO die. It's because you have not dealt, it sounds like, with the American healthcare system in the way that millions of other Americans have.
I've dealt with the healthcare system in various ways in America. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but the idea that I would view it as something...
Have you been denied life-saving treatment?
The idea that I would view it as something joyful, that a man who's just a healthcare executive has been executed in the street, I find completely bizarre. Let me bring in Tomi here. Yeah. Tomi, I keep being told... Hang on, Taylor, I'll come back to you.
Okay, Tomi, don't say I'm joyful. I said
you said you were feeling joyful.
Yeah, I take that back. Joyful is the wrong word, Piers.
You think?
I said, as I clarified,
you think?
Yeah.
You think joyful is the wrong word? Yeah.
Sure.
I'd say it is.
celebratory because, again, it feels like justice in this system when somebody responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans suffers the same fate as those tens of thousands of Americans who he murdered or
Tomi, whether Taylor wants to retract the word joyful or not, we all heard her say it, and I was just shocked. I mean, I find that kind of response utterly shocking.
So just before we get going here, if you don't know who Tomi Lahren is, she's the one that looks like Barbie, second from the right. And, no pearls are actually clutched in this segment, but you can just imagine that for yourself because, oh my God, here we go.
Someone could be murdered in the middle of Manhattan who happens to be an executive for a healthcare company, and people think this is something that makes them feel joyful.
Yeah, this is still the remnants of the incredibly bratty Occupy Wall Street movement that's morphed into 100 other movements by now, all equally as disgusting. But to celebrate the murder of a husband and a father simply because you disagree with his position at a company, or you disagree with the company, or you disagree with the system of healthcare that we have in the U.S. is quite frankly sick, twisted, and disgusting. Why you'd celebrate anybody's murder, especially just an innocent man who you happen to disagree with, is really shocking to me. But it also just goes to show that the left and many on the left have a tendency to believe that violence like this, political violence, is necessary. It's a means to an end. And if they believe in the end and they believe in the means, it's really sick and wrong. If you want to have a conversation about healthcare in this country, that's fine. Let's have that all day long. But to be joyful, or even to say you're not empathetic about somebody losing their life when they leave behind two young boys, especially during the holiday season, the same day that millions of New Yorkers are celebrating a tree lighting. I mean, that's just...
I mean, it's bad to have shot the guy in the back, but on the day of the tree lighting? Wow, that's just too far.
Too far for me, a bridge too far. The loving and tolerant left is at it again, Piers.
Yeah, Taylor, I don't mean to be rude, but why the fuck are you laughing all the time? I don't get it.
Piers doesn't mean to be rude.
Apologies for my language, but honestly, I find it unbelievable. What are you laughing at?
I am laughing at Tomi's insane mischaracterization of why people are angry. It has nothing to do with Occupy Wall Street. This is a feeling that people feel across the left and the right. You mentioned Ben Shapiro earlier in his video about the healthcare exec. I encourage people to check the comment section on that video, okay? 100% of America is united on this, or rather the majority of America is united on this. We do not think that this healthcare system that is murdering, again, thousands of innocent Americans who, by the way, Tomi, also have families, also have children. These people are being killed by our barbaric and evil for-profit healthcare system. And I agree, we should not necessarily go around shooting people in the street. And while I am joyful that this issue has been brought to attention...
Did you hear that, Piers? Not necessarily.
It's just unbelievable.
They shouldn't be shot in the streets. They shouldn't be shot in the streets because, again, it doesn't solve the systemic problem. You could United Healthcare will just appoint a new ghoulish CEO. The point is that we need to fix these systems so that, again, people like Brian or whoever is in charge of these companies stops murdering tens of thousands of innocent Americans. That is the crime.
Let me bring in Mark on this. I mean, Mark, I'm sorry, but there's just no justification for laughing your way through a segment like this, talking about how joyful you were that this happened. Is there?
Again, I'm not joyful that it happened.
Sorry, Taylor, I'm asking Mark, not you.
Well, then stop.
I heard you. You said it. You may have recanted it, but unfortunately,
no, I'm clarifying it because
unfortunately,
again,
as you know, this show keeps receipts. We all know what we saw, and we all know what we heard.
I'm not denying that I said it, but I'm denying that your interpretation of it, which is an insane.
I know what joyful means. It fills you with joy.
I'm joyful that people are paying attention to this issue.
No, you were joyful that he got murdered. That's what you said.
I am.
Then you realised what you said. Then you realised what you said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm clarifying it for
you.
Thought,
that's going to make things even worse for me. Mark, let me bring you in.
Just to be clear, things are great for me because, again, I am on the side of the rest of America, which believes that this for-profit healthcare system.
Actually, you're not, because most Americans do not think they felt joy in that moment. It's you.
No, because, again, I didn't feel joy in that moment. I felt joy that people were paying attention to this issue.
You told me you did.
Again, you're misinterpreting. No,
I tell you what, just to clarify.
Just to jump in.
Do you want me to play it again? Do you want me to remind you?
Stop misrepresenting my views.
Do you want me to remind you what you said? Do you want me to
Piers,
remind
you can repeat what I said all I want, but again, you're misrepresenting
Don't
my
worry.
views. I am telling you how I feel.
Social media will remind you later. Don't worry about it. Mark,
Again,
over to you.
Piers, I'm glad you're
Taylor,
able
can
to
you
get
show
this
some
right.
manners to your other panelists?
Taylor, show some manners, Taylor.
Mark.
Well, stop misquoting me.
No, I quoted you directly. You then recanted
Well,
it.
then
Mark.
stop misrepresenting my views and my feelings.
I'm not. You felt joyful, then you wished you hadn't said it because you knew how bad it sounded.
No, Piers. No, Piers.
I quoted
don't
you
feel joyful.
directly. Mark.
Again, you are misrepresenting how I feel. So stop misrepresenting.
Let me as an independent third person here, along the time of third and fourth person here, maybe offer some clarity to this. It sounds like she used the word joy. You found it appalling.
Did you?
She says that she misspoke. She recanted, and you're saying that despite her recanting, she still said it in the first place. It seems to me the question is just whether you believe her or not. But we can move past that. I happen to think that none of us should find joy in death. None of us should find joy in people being killed. This was a person. This was a human being. This was somebody who was loved and loved people. I find no joy, no value, no humor in any human loss of life or animal loss of life. But in this case, I think it's important to stress that because of everything that happened on the internet. That said, we can have two conversations simultaneously. We can find great sadness in the fact that this man was killed and also see it as a valuable and rich site of opportunity to discuss the bigger picture of healthcare in America, which doesn't lead to individual political assassinations, but does lead to the death of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and maybe even millions of people every single day, some of which is entirely preventable. We live in a system that prioritizes profits over people. And the fact that so many people who are otherwise normal and humane and loving and empathetic were able to find humor or joy in this tragic death, it says something about who we are as people, but it also says something to how this wicked system has damaged us and corroded our character and eroded our sensibilities. I'm saying let's have that conversation about how sad this man's individual death is, but let's not let that be the only story that we tell. Let's also tell the story about this healthcare system. That's all.
Obviously, there's a much bigger debate to have about the healthcare system. But Tomi, it was inevitable that the finger of blame would eventually turn to one person. Let's take a look at this clip.
Don't you think this is a systemic problem that's coming from the top? Look what Trump tweets or whatever it's called, false social.
Called truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there's the stuff that comes out of his mouth is exactly this kind of stuff, and he allows it. And people, I noticed in 2016, wow, people are behaving differently.
It was Donald Trump's fault, Tomi, that this lunatic, I'll call him a deranged lunatic, even though we have no idea if he was, but we do know that he believes violence was the answer because he said that in his little manifesto that was found on him. Tomi, it was Donald Trump's fault that this deranged lunatic executed the healthcare executive. No.
You know what? I'm not going to let her talk because I'm afraid I'll throw my computer out the window. She drives me so insane. It's, I don't think anybody's saying it's Donald Trump's fault. I'm not sure that other pundit was implying that. I do think the president sets a tone, right? Presidents are supposed to be people that are calming the national mood, that are trying to build unity and bring us together. That has never been what Donald Trump does. That's right. He enables the extremes. He wants the news cycle constantly to be clicking on him. He wants to create chaos and so divide, right? He's trying to divide us. So I don't think that comment is off base at all. I don't think you can pin this particular murder specifically to anything Donald Trump said or did in the way that you can pin the January 6th insurrection directly to Trump's organizing and inciting of it. And the evidence for that is monumental. However, I think to try and make this all about one individual's, turn into vigilantism and society's quote unquote joy over it ignores the real underlying story, right? not just that healthcare in this country is broken, not just that it's deliberately, it's not just prioritizing profit over healthcare services. It is almost cruel to the degree that it does that. And arguably, when you see that it's using an algorithm that is, deciding on denying claims, and it denies, there's a 90% error rate, right? That's not an accidental error rate. You don't accidentally make a program that's wrong 90% of the time. That's deliberate. When you deny 1 in every 3 claims your company gets, that's not accidental either, right? That's policy. So it starts to feel deliberately cruel, and it's gotten to a breaking point, right? People's response to this, balloon emojis, laughing emojis, whatever, they're not celebrating the murder. We didn't even know who this guy was, right? I didn't even know his name, and I'm checking it right now. Brian Thompson is his name. I just knew he was the CEO of United Healthcare, right? It's that what he represents, that somebody struck out against the people at the helm of these. I don't think it's wrong to use the term evil. Corporations, there's a sense of cosmic justice to it, that finally somebody at the top of the pyramid making money off of our literal blood and death got a taste of it, right? And I think, as much as that resonates with me, I think the conversation is about how incredibly dangerous this state of affairs is. I don't think, everybody's going to thoughts and prayers. Nobody's going to change the law, right? Not after one CEO assassination. And believe me, to be frank here, I am not calling for more murder. Please, we can't start killing each other in the streets. That doesn't stop, right? I mean, that ends in guillotines in the French Revolution. And that might have felt satisfying to the poor people in France at that time, but it wasn't good for anybody at the end of the day. Oh, man. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. I mean, I don't want to say I think a lot more people got to go before anything changes, but I'm certainly not calling for that. I am not calling for that. I'm just saying I don't know how we move forward. Things are getting worse and worse as the system gets more and more corrupt and degrades, and I don't want everything to burn down. That's no fun. Trust me. That's no fun. Nobody should want everything to burn down. I just don't see how anything's going to change without that happening. I want to be wrong. Somebody in the comments tell me how it can change realistically without everything having to go completely into full disaster and then rebuilding from the literal ashes of what, we enjoy as our kind of very comfortable, despite all the problems, country, right? And maybe world. Wow, I've gotten really dark here. I'm going to blame Tomi Lahren on this mood that I'm in, but I want to hear what you think in the comments.